across this morning.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like we don't need a new school.
But you know, I was
Not
shocked
a-
when I saw that.
Right.
That's all.
Good evening and welcome to the School Building Committee. It's October 23rd, 2012. I'd like to see if anyone has any public comment. None? Okay. We do not have a quorum as yet, so we'll pass over approving the minutes and approving invoices. There was no correspondence. So I'd like to get right to the updates on our community meetings. And first of all, I'd like to find out from the committee if anyone would like to bring up anything that came to them or that they'd like to discuss about what they saw at the community meetings.
Well, I think Dave Surface answered the question about, whether there was any contingencies on MSBA approval for, if there was some question whether they were gonna approve if we got a foundation in the ground and if, it was gonna be approved later on, if,
So the Pembroke project in addition to the
Right.
middle high school project? Yes, and his answer was, we truly don't know, but that, obviously, as Pat said, they're not gonna stop a project that has a foundation started. That they're behind us, they're supporting us as a town, and they're encouraging us to find support for both projects. That they want us to approve the Pembroke project and the feasibility study, but they're not expecting us to complete all the items that are found on the feasibility study, that we can come up with a time frame. It's not gonna be something that we say to the town immediately, this has to be done right now. We can work out something, some type of plan that suits us, as long as we show progress
right,
towards completing anything that is found through the feasibility study for the middle high school.
I think there was some confusion as to if this were to be voted down, whether we could go back, tweak, kind of work another year on it, come up with some better solutions, and then go back. But I think the answer was that, no, you do not have that opportunity. And we would go back into the waiting list. Now, a slight tweak maybe, but they're not going to wait 6-12 months for us to come back to them. So this is our chance. We've waited 10 years for it, and this is our chance. And it's this project or back to the drawing board, really.
That's correct.
and I think there's some confusion on the bond information too. That, what exactly is that gonna mean to the taxpayer as far as, on your tax bill?
Okay. So right now, the rate is still 3.25, is that correct, Mike? For a bond?
Oh, the interest rate?
Yes,
That's our estimate.
okay.
That's what our financial advisor is telling us, but as I stated in a couple different meetings, they've been very conservative. It'll probably be below that, but all our calculations are based on 3.25.
Okay. So right now, that's $1.66 per thousand. And hopefully will be less if, in fact, you can get a lower rate.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else? Yes,
I
Kim?
just had a question. I was at the Saturday meeting, and I believe, did you mention how much it would be at the end of the 25-year term? It would start at $1.66. I thought you did, but somehow I didn't find it in my notes.
It will drop 3 cents a thousand every year. So by the 25th, when you get down, it's about 93 cents, I think.
3 cents. Okay, thank you.
But it'll go down 3 cents each year.
In year 25, it would be 93 cents.
Yeah,
Thereabouts.
And I put that information up there.
Okay. Oh,
Up on the
thanks.
website, so if you wanna take a look at how incrementally it goes down, the principle, I guess, will stay the same.
Correct.
Mike, I've been meaning to ask you this question, so not to put you on the spot and talk another time, but if we were to pass an override, say for $1 million one year, because we have the need for something, do we typically bond that for how long? or if we had to go for a bond or a loan for that, how would we manage a $1 million?
$1 million, that would be a short-term loan. You know, I think the most we'd be able to do is 10 years.
10 years, and what would typically be the interest rates on a 10-year loan like that?
Well, the lower the term, the shorter the term, the lower the interest
Right.
rate. So it'd probably be around 2%.
So it would be, okay.
And Pat, what about the question I thought of? We have $2.5 million approximately in contingency funding.
About that, yes, yes.
So what if we come in, let's say, $1 million lower? How does that affect our bond? Do we just make?
Well, what happens is, once the bids come in, if you come in lower, MSBA is gonna rewrite the project funding agreement. They change all the calculations. If the job comes in under budget, they simply recalculate everything. The town saves money, the state saves money, and they simply recalculate everything. And your bond, whatever you're gonna be bonding, would be less, because the whole project has come down in cost.
Okay. And so what if, like, the savings is like in site costs? Is that,
It's, as long as the price comes down, they rewrite it.
okay.
And then they apply all the normal percentages. You can't be over $275 a square foot for the building, you can't be over 8%. So once the bids come in, we do a schedule of value breakdown, and then they just redo the computations based on the same formula, based on a reduced price, and everybody basically saves money. Everybody's borrowing less.
So would that affect the principal, Mike, you know, as far as, because we'll have apply for the bond, you know, before construction starts, right?
Yeah, right now, even though it's a $46+ million project, we're only gonna be borrowing around 25. And because it's a 2.5-year, 3-year project, unless we get a strong signal that interest rates are gonna go up, then it would be beneficial to bond the entire 25 right out of the gate. But typically, I mean, we're not gonna spend $25 million in the first year. So we do graduated borrowing, and then when we're all finished, then, because the short-term borrowing, we actually get deferred principal on it, so we're only paying interest initially. And sometimes they'll waive the interest payments too, like we did for the feasibility study. We borrowed about $350,000. We haven't paid a nickel on it yet, because principal and interest were waived. We'll be rolling that $720 into the total construction bond if it passes. If it doesn't, we have to start paying that $720 off in 3 years, 3 annual payments.
And typically what we do is, and MSBA requires it, we do a cash flow. In other words, once the bids all come in and everything else, we'll do a projected cash flow. And most of the communities do exactly what Mike was just saying. They'll look at the cash flow and they'll realize that it's a 2-year project or something. You don't have to borrow the whole thing in the first year. Again, in conjunction with your financial consultants and bond counsel, you'll actually look at the cash flow and you'll actually decide on how you're gonna borrow the money, how you're gonna bond it. You'll probably bond it in a series of shorter term bonds that obviously give you enough comfort, so you're obviously not gonna run out of cash during the construction project, but you'll borrow it in increments consistent with the expenditure of the dollars for construction. And that's typical, unless there's an anomaly, like Mike said, unless you're anticipating there's gonna be a big spike in interest rates or something, but
Which nobody thinks right now.
I don't think anybody's speculating on any spike in interest rates for the next couple of years.
Mike, going back, just to refresh my memory, so if we pass this, the state will split the feasibility study of $720,000. If we don't pass this, we're paying the whole $720. Is that how it works?
No, they're
They're
They're paying
their
for
They're
share.
paying half no matter what it
Right.
is. Okay.
It's just that instead of rolling the $350,000 into the 25 million,
Right.
there'll be no 25 million if it doesn't pass, so we have to pay the 350,000
Okay.
back,
Got it. All right. Thank you.
starting immediately.
But the state is, let me clear that up. The state is not going to pay any part of a feasibility study
Oh, yes, they will.
Yeah.
They're
They are?
paying 54%.
of
We're
the
committed
study.
to that, yes.
Yes.
Whether we pass it or not, that's what I was,
Are you asking, I'm not sure,
Worried about
Tilly's
that.
asking about the study.
The study.
Not the feasibility study to do the Pembroke project, but the middle high school feasibility
Right,
study
right.
part. That's what she's asking about, is that $85,000, is a portion of that $85,000
Yes,
going
this
to
is-
be
Yeah, the answer, the answer to that
Committed.
is yes.
Okay,
Yes.
They're both
Yes.
They've
being
committed
paid.
to that.
Yeah, they
That's,
both-
that's really unusual.
See, they
That's-
voted at the board.
It is unusual.
Right,
Without you submitting a statement of interest. They invited you into the program. Once
Yeah.
you're invited into the program,
Mhm.
then and they approve it, they're gonna be paying for that particular share of it. Now, it won't be the 54%, because again, remember, this 54% has the 2% for green, but you can't make the whole high school
Right.
green.
49.
So it'll be 49 or 50 or something, but it is gonna be a
Exactly.
substantial reimbursement.
Well, they upped our rate anyway, so it is into the 50%. I'm not,
They've been reimbursing us all along.
Yeah.
right, for this one.
We pay the bill, but every month we get, the state's share of it comes back to us.
Mhm.
There's a pro-pay process where every month, whatever you spend that month, that you pay for. We, in conjunction with preparing all the forms, that goes into the state,
Uh-huh.
and they send you a check on a monthly basis for their share.
So what that means is, without writing a feasibility study, when we pass the middle high school feasibility study, and then proceed to do any of the work that's required, they will partner with us on those repairs also. They've already committed to that. So they've allowed us to skip what could be even a couple of years in wait time,
Mm.
of waiting to get approval for a feasibility study. So it is unusual all around, and, as a town, we're actually very fortunate to have this happen to us.
Yeah, prior to the legislative change in 2004, a community had to go out and bond the entire project. The state didn't do any reimbursements for at least a year after you even started construction. And then they paid it over a 20-year period of time. In the new arrangement, there's a huge advantage, because they'll be paying everything off their share
Mm.
during the duration of construction. So instead of waiting 25 years, whatever the bonding was at the time, they're coming in and they're paying their share, and whatever it takes you to construct the building. When we get done and we finish construction and send that final payment in, state's gonna pay you their $20 million is gonna be in the bank in the town. Years ago, before 2004, you waited for 25 years.
Right, right.
Dribbled in, it was a huge, and it's been a tremendous advantage for the communities, and also for the taxpayers. I mean, again, like I said, they get rid of their burden right off the bat, and they move it on to somebody else, yeah. Yeah, it's a big, big advantage.
So in other words, when we did the high school and the renovations and other, we had to take out
Exactly,
the whole cost of the whole project
That's right.
in a bond.
yeah.
Now that should be winding down, am I right?
2018, right?
Well, we refinanced too, but George is right, in 2018, we paid $250,000 a year in principal and interest on that bond right now.
Mm-hmm.
How does that, when that gets retired, how does that come back? Does that come back as free cash? Or is it?
No, it's a debt exclusion, so it'll just come off the, we won't have any more money to spend, because it won't be in the levy anymore. It just drops out of the levy. Your tax rate will go down, by that $250,000 a year, which is about 9 cents for every $100,000. So you see a 25-cent reduction in your tax rate after 2018.
That's important to relay maybe at the town meeting, because it seems that you want to hear the positives of why it has to be done now. I mean, what I've been hearing is everybody's concerned about the cost. In fact, there was this gentleman, well, what did he figure, $500 a square foot? So if we can hear,
Chuck, you mean, yeah.
if we can hear some positives about, what we can look for in decrease in our taxes. I think it's a good thing to get the people familiar with so that they know that's what they have to look forward to.
Yeah,
you
but
know.
that $500 a square foot, he was rolling in site costs. It wasn't,
Probably
Oh,
It was
it
project
was.
cost.
Site cost.
everything.
It wasn't just that, it was project cost, it was the entire cost.
yeah.
But that's
It's everything.
yeah, but that's the that's
still, but-
that's how things get
I mean, it's just
broadcasted.
hard- Well, it's just hard for people to understand the cost of construction.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in the business and the numbers, they're just, you just can't, there's no way to relate it to like yourself in your home. It's just not the same thing. It's just not. Costs are costs, and there's prevailing wages that we have to meet, and there's cost of materials. I mean, this is not wood construction. It's steel construction. It costs more money. I mean, steel prices are a lot of money, and that's just it. I mean, it costs more than a project that you can imagine. So.
Yeah.
There's no
It's
end
hard to
around
do.
it.
Yeah, there's just no way around it. I mean, now is the best time to, you're getting the best construction costs that you'll get for years to come. You're getting, Mike was saying, you're getting the best, interest rates, that we've ever seen. You're getting the state that's going to be giving you, a lot of money to do it. It's just all these factors are just wonderful things that Georgetown can
Right.
grasp, but it is hard to just comprehend that much money.
Right.
It really is.
And the other thing that almost everybody agrees, Pembroke is in dire need of help. And that's the bottom line. That's why it can't be put off. We have to address the issues at Pembroke and the middle high school, which also has some needs now. I mean, no matter what we do, that's gonna happen. I mean, to just do a renovation, the repairs only on Pembroke, Carl figured out, would be almost $19,000. I mean, million. 19 million to just repair that building. Just repair it. That doesn't expand it. That doesn't change the format. All it does is repair it. And that isn't gonna buy us 50 years. 18 million, almost $19 million. For 22 million, we can repair it and put an addition on. But is that gonna buy us 50 years? It's really not.
Well,
The
plus it's
reality is
all
not
on
gonna
our ticket.
And it's
It's
all
all on
us.
our ticket.
Right.
So you can do that, or you can spend the 25 and get a brand new building with the sizes of classrooms you want and you need, with all the amenities that you need, including all the computers and everything else that we're
Right,
talking
furnished.
about.
And you're
It's all
solving the
furnished, everything.
overcrowding at high school.
It just makes more sense. I
Right.
mean, the
And-
state said that too.
And it solves overcrowding at 3 schools. Pearlie's overcrowded, the middle high school is crowded, and Pembroke is crowded.
Right.
So the new building takes care of all those issues. One of the questions that did come up was, at any point did we just look at the 1 through 6 option? When we went back in January and were asked to study adding 7th and possibly 8th grade.
Oh, we voted on it.
Right, but the answer was, MSBA said, no, don't pull K. You made a sound educational decision when you brought K up into this project of a K through 6 building. And it doesn't make sense to eliminate it. And, we just sort of floated that question just to ask, but the reality is they said no. There's a reason to bring K through 6. If you go K through 7 or K through 8, you just add those on. But to drop K didn't make any sense. So, I did want to bring that up because I know that did come up in conversation.
Ellie, on that point too, I think there was discussion about the $5 million figure. And one of the things that occurred to me as I was listening to that is that it's 5 million on the 46 million.
Correct.
It's not 5 million on Georgetown share. Georgetown share is half of that. Not to say that 2.5 million is a small amount of money.
Right.
But it just to be factually correct, it isn't 5 million on Georgetown. It's or $500,000 on Georgetown's share.
Right, it added to the total project.
Added to the total project.
Right. I don't know if any of you had a chance to read the link I sent you on Beverly.
Oh, yeah.
Did you get a chance to read that?
Yeah.
I guess, and Beverly's quite frankly not very far from us, so I'm surprised we hadn't heard about this. But Beverly really had some very serious issues. In 2000, NEASC, the New England Association for Schools and Colleges, placed Beverly on warning because of their, they had building issues, much like Georgetown does, Georgetown Middle High School. And again, Georgetown Middle High School is on warning for its buildings. So they did a feasibility study in 2002. The city council defeated their bond for $50 million and chose not to build a new school. In 2003, NEASC, and this is what I have from them, is they were frustrated by Beverly's lack of progress and ultimately placed the school, they changed their status and lowered it from warning to probation.
Ellie, tell people what NEAS is.
I did. It's the New England Accreditation, a New England Association for Schools and Colleges.
Yeah.
And that is the governing board in New England that goes and inspects schools.
And gives them accreditation.
They're the accrediting board, correct. They look at schools for community involvement, financial backing, they look at the curriculums, they look at the facilities, they look at what students do, what is offered, kind of offerings are available for students. They spend 3 or 4 days going through a building. The schools undergo 2-3 years of planning for this. They do a self-study, they review all their curriculum materials, they put everything together, and the committee comes and they go through all the curriculums. They meet with the community, they meet with students, they meet with faculty, they meet with the administrators, and then they write up a report based on their findings. And the visiting committees are made up of other educators, other administrators, business professionals. And it's typically people who have nothing to do with the area, so that there are no biases. And then they write their report, and it's submitted to the town. Now, Georgetown received their warning, when, Carol? What year?
2006 was the visit, and then they sent us the letter, I believe, in early 2007. But basically, of the 7 standards, Georgetown was commended on all but one. That's Standard 7, which is Community Resources for Learning, which deals with appropriate budgets for the school, long-range planning, maintenance, technology, and the building facility.
And by the way, Beverly's situation was almost identical to what Carol just described. They were the
Yeah, it
same
appeared
points.
that way.
Yep.
The interesting thing about the facility is if you go to NEASC's website, there's a written document that says if you are on warning or probation for the building, you have 2 years, well, actually it's warning, 2 years to fix the deficiencies. And we are on year 7. And
But
they're
why?
And they're continually, when we brought NEASC here last year, because there was questions when we were doing the override as to what does accreditation really mean, what's the value, what happens if you don't have it. We actually brought somebody from NEASC here and had a community conversation about it. And one of the things that was discussed is the importance of, maintaining accreditation. And because the town passed an override, and because the town passed the feasibility study for the $720,000, in their mind, that showed really good faith on the part of the town of Georgetown that it was making reasonable progress. And we've been telling them when the building project is voted on, then we're gonna use that as a part of our answer to, the issue of moving the sixth grade. That is one of the things that the town will face if the project fails, is we still have the matter of how are we going to address those issues that NEASC identified, because
The overcrowding
we're
issues.
going to need to figure that out. We're going to need to do much of the work at the middle high school anyway. Because I don't think they're going to say, oh, okay, you don't have the money now after 7 years. I mean, they're due to come back in 2016 for their next visit.
But here's what will happen, because it won't be part of this project then, right? If we turn down this project, well, I'm asking a question, I guess. And then, we could ultimately end up paying for all the high school renovations 100%, because we're gonna have to do it within the next few years. Most likely, we would not get back into the program in the next few years. So ultimately, there's a very good chance we'll end up, if we have to put 3 million in the high school so we can keep from going to accreditation probation, it'll be on our own dime. Very good chance of that, correct?
Well, I mean, that's, their project funding agreement pretty much says that they have the right to, if the projects fail, they have a right to obviously just terminate the agreement and move on.
Right,
That's what the agreement says.
yes.
But you can start it if, you know,
You
5
could.
years down
Right.
the line doing another.
Right, but my point is, we'll probably be on probation. They're not gonna wait 5, 6 more years. We'll go on probation.
You'll be on it,
And
yeah.
I think Ellie's about to continue on the Beverly situation. They
Yeah.
dragged it along so much that they not only were put on probation, but then the town of Beverly threatened to take away their accreditation altogether.
Right.
Or NEASC did.
NEASC.
NEASC
They-
threatened Beverly, yeah.
They
I'm
had
sorry, I said
reached
the town.
the max.
They had reached the max. So then what happened, they had to react very quickly, the town. I'm sorry. They had to react-
You're on a roll.
They had to react very quickly to the town, and they ended up having to approve an $80 million project instead of what they could have done
For 50.
5 years previously, $50 million
Well,
project.
well, one thing that you said that if the project doesn't go through and then we have to meet the requirements or the negatives of the building and overcrowding at the middle high school, and you said 3 million. 3 million, if you know, is taking the space. It was $3 to $4 million. Take the space that the sixth grade vacates,
Right.
reworking that, which is a lot less expensive than having to figure out an overcrowding issue where you may have to add on.
Right.
Right.
So if we don't do it, then not, we have the crowding still, so we'll have to add on or figure out some other place in town that sixth grade can go to be able to, adjust for this. So the $3 to $4 million is not what it's gonna cost, almost guaranteed, if we don't have the project. It's gonna be a lot more.
And on top of that, you gotta admit, so now we're talking about what we have to do quickly for the high school. Remember, we've got tons of repairs and stuff needed at Pembroke to just keep it safe and open. So, you're right, the bills could go very quickly, and that's why, I asked the question earlier, we'll be at town meeting every single year debating warrant articles on a reactionary basis, $1 million here, 1.4 there, whatever it might be, I'm just making up numbers. Every single year, we'll be having these discussions at town meeting, having to spend money, not matched, and not being able to plan for it, because it'll all be reactionary spending. It won't be planned out expenditures, they'll be us reacting to crisis.
By the time it's all repaired, we have to start over again.
Right, because they're
Like the painting of the Tobin
right.
Bridge.
But, my point is, we're spending money, we'll be spending money nonstop and not fixing the problem.
Right.
Right, we're just gonna spend money and
Band-aid
not
everything.
Band-aid it up a building that has passed its time.
And ultimately, with Band-Aid fixes like that, in 10 years, the town is gonna be back looking for a feasibility study because they're gonna just have to do the whole thing. Ultimately, Pembroke needs to be replaced.
Right.
A fix is not the right thing for that building, it's just not.
And that's what our study proved to us.
We tried. I mean, I know I went into this thinking addition, fix, because it's an adorable school. And it is an adorable school. I think all of us feel that way, but the reality is, it can't be fixed and satisfy the educational needs of this town. It just can't.
I did see some groans in the audience when Carl mentioned that we're building a school to last 50 years. But to me, that just means 50 years before a major renovation again, or doesn't mean we have to tear the whole building down.
You know,
Pat, is there data on that? I think Carl made the point that there's been 300 school projects since 2007 that have gone to vote in different towns. And one of my questions was, and this could be a nightmare to ever figure out, but what is the average age of those schools that those 300 projects were replacing? Some might be new, maybe 100 of them were new schools to towns that are growing and such, but those that were replacing schools because of age, I'm just curious, what has been the average age of a dysfunctional school that needed to be replaced in the state of Massachusetts, in the last 10, 15 years,
Well, I'm not
Or
familiar
since
with-
2007, since this project started.
I'm not familiar with the statistics that Kyle put up,
Okay.
but I can tell you, it varies considerably. A lot of the schools that have been replaced have been the schools who were built during the open school concept, and during the famous, everybody was going electric,
Yep.
which was in the early 70s. Not the end of a high school, we replaced that back in roughly 2000. That school was 30 years old, but it was open concept, it was total electric. And when you did the analysis, people were somewhat outraged that 30 years, how can we be replacing a school? Well, when you went back in and analyzed what you needed for area square footages, when you looked at you needed complete new MEP, which represents roughly a third of the project, when it didn't meet any of the thermal codes, any of the handicap codes, and there were no petitions inside the building, there was really nothing left to say because you didn't want to work with an archaic footprint.
Right.
So there really was nothing to say. So we've seen schools, again, like I said, that were 30 years old that have come down during the open concept phase. Some of them obviously are 75, 80, 100 years old. Some of them are very, very antiquated. So there's quite a variety, but I would say that the newer schools that have been replaced, a great majority have been the schools that were ill-conceived at the time that they were built, because they were built around an educational premise that really never worked, and the buildings themselves were just shells.
Well, speaking of Beverly, why is it, I don't know if you're familiar with Beverly, but they had two junior high schools, Briscoe and Memorial. And Memorial, I think Briscoe was built in the 30s. Memorial-
20s.
20s.
Earlier than that, yeah.
And Memorial was built
In the
probably
50s, yeah.
in the 50s.
Yeah.
Yet they converted Memorial and they've kept Briscoe all these years. So I imagine they must have done some extensive.
It was size. Briscoe was the old high school. Briscoe could take both schools. Memorial was too small, but their building project that they're applying for now is to do an addition renovation to the Memorial building and close Briscoe eventually. So that's,
Oh, so they're going back to Memorial?
they're going back, that's the proposal. They were in with Carol this month applying,
Yeah.
but they were delayed.
Yeah,
They didn't get on the
they didn't
list.
get on the list,
No.
Does everybody know that Joan was the school
I
business
was just gonna
administrator?
ask
for
George if
Beverly?
he knew that.
She lives in Beverly.
I live in Beverly too.
Principal.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we have the right.
The expert here.
But I'll tell you that in Beverly, the high school opened in 1965, and it was built in a California design. Had 11 different levels. They had 11 Garavanta lifts in the building and like over 100 doors to the outside. So it was very poorly designed, just miserable to maintain. And there was no way our funding could keep up with maintenance. You just couldn't do it. It was just too expensive. But to your question, we built a new school in Beverly, an elementary school, through the old MSBA project. We started in 1998, and we built a new school, and we did renovations and additions to 5 elementary schools in Beverly. And most of them, I think, were built in the late 50s, early 60s. One was built in the 70s with electric heat, but yeah, they
40
were all.
years, around 40 years.
Our oldest building is still there,
Yeah.
operating. It was our newer buildings that we did all the projects on.
I think the other issue is, I think that Mike, you really ought to do some explanation of the taxes. What I've been hearing is that if the value of our homes go up, then our taxes go up. But that's not true. And I tried to explain it to people. It's very hard for them to absorb that tax rate will come down with the value of your house.
Tilly, if I could get that across to the citizens, I've been trying to do that for 20 years. And it just is so counterintuitive to the average
Right.
taxpayer. They can't get their head around that.
So can you
But
say it one more
Yes,
time?
if your value goes up, your tax rate will generally go down. The pie gets bigger.
Right.
But I mean, in reality, correct me if I'm wrong, that if your value goes up and your tax rate goes down, your taxes are still about the same. Because it's all based on, Proposition 2.5, where you
Right.
keep everything the same, whether your values go up or down, the rates change to keep the total tax amount coming to the town the same, plus the 2.5 every year. So no matter what really happens, your taxes, I think, stay the same,
But they don't
even
go
though
up.
the rates go up or down,
They don't go up.
basically.
Yeah.
And here's another thing, when a town is healthy,
I mean, unless it's relative, I mean, obviously, that's relative to everybody going
Right.
up or down together. If your house is improved, obviously, your tax rates go
when
up.
a town,
Usually what happens is a third goes up, a third goes down, and a third stays the same.
Yeah.
but when a town is healthy, there's also some new construction, right? That's what we've seen in years. And you can only go up 2.5. So if 10 new houses are built each year in Georgetown, I'm not saying that's gonna happen, but that has happened in the last 10 years, right?
Right.
That goes towards your overall tax base, which can only go up 2.5, which also helps in that equation of keeping either taxes down or level, correct?
No.
Yes.
Yes and
We've
no,
been
I would
getting-
say.
Since I've been here, we've been averaging about $100,000 added to the levy per year with new value. The only reason why towns have survived since the 80s, when Prop 2.5 came into being, was because the values that were, kept climbing, the values of homes, and new construction was being built. Since, 07, when the housing bubble burst and values dropped, we've been dependent solely on the tax rate. On the residential tax rate. So, and yes, luckily it only went up 2.5%, but guess what? You cannot operate and run a municipality on 2.5% every, it's
Yeah.
structurally impossible. That's why when we went to get our bond rating 2 weeks ago, one of the main reasons, we have a very good bond rating. It's a AA. And for a small town, that's excellent. You can only get a AAA, higher. But one of the reasons that Moody's stated for maintaining our bond rate was that we passed an override. Because they recognize that towns that don't pass overrides can't be operating in a good fashion. You just can't do it.
Yeah. It's,
You also have to take the flip side of what you said too. So if housing values go up, people are concerned their taxes will go up. Well, guess what? We don't pass this school and housing values dip further down, because there's a good chance of that, right? Who's going to want to move into Georgetown when really what brings people to Georgetown is a safe community, great place to raise your kids, and oh, by the way, kids want to go to good schools. So there's a good chance all our houses will depreciate if we don't do something in this town for a new school. Then the values go down, and then
The
our
rates go down.
taxes, what's that?
The rates, you mean, go down,
The-
right?
Right, well,
the value goes down and then the rates go up.
the rates go up to offset. So,
that's
I mean,
exactly-
the opposite of what you just said, I think is more scary than
Well,
the
that's,
questions out there.
that's what, I think people are getting the end around attitude right now because it's getting close. So they're looking for these kind of issues to justify which direction they're going in. And I really think that they have to get a handle on how their tax rate is functioned. Because other than that, they've got these misinformation
I mean,
that's,
the positive thing on what you're saying, or what can happen, is if your value of your house goes up because of this improvement of schools and stuff like that, as a community looks better to everybody, your values go up, your tax rates, your tax payment stays about the same because the rates fluctuate downward to accommodate for that, to meet Proposition 2.5. But now you have a house that's worth a lot more than you had it before,
Yeah.
and you're paying taxes at a much lower rate than other towns, you're even looking better. You know, you have a great school, you have low tax rates, you have, you know, good value of houses.
The healthiest thing for Georgetown is to keep good, strong schools, and
Oh,
part of
yeah.
that is, you know, our
Right
buildings. To, you know, and it's just,
Yeah.
we,
But the,
all the people that are talking from the opponents of this, they want to put this off. They think something's going to happen, but just not now, and just not this project. Well, put it off, and it's just going to be more money, and you can't put it off too long. You know, we'll
Oh,
get
yeah.
back on the list, and we'll have to find a new committee to work on it for the next 10 years, but it's got to come.
Feasibility
Right.
study.
And new feasibility study, we'll have to spend another 700,000, which everyone will say, oh, we already spent 700,000.
right.
And still fix the high school. in the
Interest rates will
meantime.
be higher and
Yeah.
costs will be higher. There is no better time to do this than right now. And you can second guess that this could have been a little smarter and this could have been a little smarter. But a group of people like Elliot, you know, have worked for 10 years on this thing. This is our project. This is our time.
Yeah.
This makes a lot of sense.
And again, putting it off means we're spending millions of dollars to fix the middle high school. It has to be fixed. I mean, NEASC is stepping up. We know they do it.
I think Rob
And we
Hoover-
can't risk that.
Rob Hoover made a good point at the meeting that we've said before, but God, is it fair to our high school kids at work and then they're on academic or accreditation probation, which is public knowledge, and they've got to even have that little battle to get into colleges, which is so hard to do these days. I mean, how many towns? Well, we know how many towns. How many towns are on accreditation probation in the state? There's not many, right?
There's not many, but they are listed on their
It's
website.
11 in New England.
There's 11 in
I
New
was gonna
England.
say 10, but
We
11.
want to be one of those 11 in New England.
Doesn't
It's
look good.
crazy.
Well, Rob also said that he doesn't want to take a chance with these kids' education.
Sure.
I mean,
He said these kids' lives, their future, absolutely.
yeah, this isn't just fooling around. This is real reality.
You know, I stuck with this committee as long as I have because Georgetown did a great job educating my kids. They're juniors in college now. You know, I'm doing this because I just want to give back. Because the town, the school system, did a great job with my children. I'm not gaining by this. And I think that's important that people know there aren't underlying motivations for doing things like this. Everyone on this committee. I mean, you still have children in school. George doesn't. Tilly doesn't. Carrie does. Jeff doesn't. You know, I think that's important.
schools, but yeah.
And that's important too. You know, Carrie will. Her kids will probably because she has the youngest. You know, and I think that's really important about the makeup of this committee. People are doing it because they care, not because they have something to gain. And I hope that it really speaks volume to the town. We really want to see this work because we think it's the right thing. And we know it's the right time. We know for a fact this is the best time to support these two schools. Replacing Pembroke, fixing the middle high school.
Ellie, on the topic of property values, at one of the community meetings, the one at Pembroke,
Mhm.
there was a gentleman who was speaking to me after the meeting, and he said, you know, there are people who don't have kids in school, and I think they're having trouble understanding why, you know, why they should spend the money on this project. And he said, you know, are there any studies or any, is there any information that's out there that can be provided to the taxpayers as sort of a evidence that building schools, good buildings, good infrastructure in your buildings has a direct benefit to property values? Like if I invest this money,
I think realtors would probably know that.
well, and I just wanted to point out in the record coming up, Ty Cobb, one of the parents in the school, is writing an article because I read it, and he addresses that and actually references organizations that have actually done studies such as that, and said that it is actually more than anecdotal information, that there is a direct correlation between the value that a taxpayer will get in supporting the building of new schools.
And the National Association of Realtors has determined that about 75% of home shoppers have indicated that a good, strong school system is either very important or somewhat important in their search for the property they're looking for.
Well,
Not
the thing,
100%, but
the
it's
reason
75.
why I'm asking my questions is that I think that we should be more prepared for the town meeting. I was discouraged that so few people showed up. And the thing is that the silent majority is out there that's not showing up, not asking the questions. And they're sitting home with wrong information
I
and wrong
know.
thoughts. So that's why I thought more of a presentation should be given to.
At town meeting?
Yeah, rather
Yes.
than wait for questions.
Yes, and actually, that's something that, and I'll jump right to that Michelle and I have been discussing, and we would like to, and I'm gonna get in touch with the moderator and ask her if it would be okay to do a 5-minute presentation. And,
They let you do that, I mean, we do that all the time with CPC.
right, we think we would like
do a
to.
PowerPoint, you mean?
Yeah, just to talk about the estimated costs between the projects, the renovation addition, and the new building. Just review those notes, the money, and then perhaps show pictures, some of the pictures Carl has of the new building. I think people need to see.
Well, I think also the comparison of doing the project and not doing the project.
Yes.
Some of the costs that are associated with that, for the renovation that is needed on Pembroke, for the addition that has to happen over at the middle high school, those types of things.
Right.
And add it up, and while we all know that it's, well, I don't know exactly, it might be about the same, but let's say it's even a little bit less, you're still getting something that's going to be lasting a lot longer, be the right size, be appropriate for this next age of students coming through, versus for the same amount of money having to pay it all yourself and getting a patch job. So
Right.
so we just have to, I think presenting that is a powerful thing, because I remember when I first came here, and I truly, after being on this committee, appreciate everything that everybody must have gone through when they did the middle high school. So I applaud them. But when I got there, and it's and I saw that it was going up as a renovation, and what all the constraints were, and in a lot of the different facilities, and then I look over at Ipswich and I saw that they took the other route and then created for very close to the same amount of town money going in. And they have a beautiful place, absolutely beautiful place that's going to last them a lot longer than we're already talking. Look at all the repairs we have to do on the middle high school, and the renovations we're going to have to do, and overcrowding and everything else. So that's what inspired me to come to this committee. And I said that 19 years ago, that if we ever get into the situation again, I'll make myself available, because it is my business anyways. And but I came in with an open mind also, as you did, and after seeing the facts, I knew that was not the way to go. It was not the way to go as a renovation, and the state, concurred that is not the way to go. So I think that what we have is a good project, and we just have to show, the facts, and show the town the facts, and I think if we show that, I think people will really take a look at it. And then the other thing I'd say is that I hope that town meetings, our system is a wonderful system. I'm always a believer that in decisions of this category, of this importance, needs to go to town vote. And I hope that in the town meeting, people will see that the vote in town meeting is not the approval
Right.
of this, but it's the approval to put this in front of the entire town.
Right.
That's really what it's for, and I strongly believe in that when you get something of this importance and magnitude, that's what should be done. It should be put to the entire town to vote on it, rather than the few that come to the town meeting, because even if we fill up both rooms, that's not a lot of people
No.
making this decision. So
No.
I want everybody to vote on it, because I really want this to be backed by the town.
I also think that we should have a slide on the tax impact. You know, I just want to make sure people understand what they're voting on. You know, we've been very transparent through this whole process. And I think right then and there, it needs to be up there again. You know, we'll put the 3.25 interest rate, you know, that we feel the impact will be $1.66. And those are the figures we've been putting out there. And, you know, we'll stick with that.
Well, I think if there's a way to communicate the why now,
Right.
somehow to communicate the why is it, Eric makes a very compelling argument when he speaks about it. I'd like to see him do that at town meeting, but it's the idea that why now? Because I've talked to some people, and some of them are people who are not kids in school people, and you need to tell me why I have to do this now, because it's a hard time for me. So if there's a good reason, so when we began to talk about what the reasons were, he said, I didn't know that. So I do think that there's gotta be some factual basis for why now? Why can't this wait 3 years? And I think we have the answer to that, but I think it's just gotta be laid out carefully.
I tried to address, I wrote an article this week too, so hopefully got in there.
Oh,
and
okay.
tried to address those, so.
Okay, good.
Yeah, what I'll do is start just drafting up some ideas. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to have any input from Michelle or how much. But I'll put my thoughts together. I'm gonna take the information that all of you have provided. If you think of anything else, send me an email and I'll include it. And then I'll send it around to the committee, get your feedback on it. Because I wanna make sure you're all on board with this presentation. I mean, you may have to also stand up and answer questions, you know, if you feel that you wanna do that. And I hope you do.
I think the other piece going on what you just said and tying into what all that you said, the interesting thing is that well, first of all, I'm an architect for those that don't know it, and our business, at least my company's business, has always been, and I've been through the recession back in the late '80s, early '90s. Been in the recession of the 2001-ish recession, and now this one. And each of the times, unfortunately, my business feels it about 2.5 years before it really happens. And then we ride through all that period, and then we ride through the period of the actual recession. And then when we start to come back, we've noticed, and depending on how severe these are, that it's about a year or so that when we start feeling better and doing better, then the rest of the state and the nation starts doing much better too. I mean, it's uncanny. It's just been doing that. So I'm thinking about that, and I'm saying, well, you know, we really went down many years before 2008 and started to go down and really hit rock bottom. And today, this whole year, we are, and the business is, not just mine, but a lot of them, are really booming. I mean, it's unbelievable, the demand on architecture right now. So I'm hoping that means within a year, a lot of other people and businesses will start really feeling this. There's a huge boom going on right now in Massachusetts and the Northeast especially. So going to some of the things that you were saying about when we actually pay, if this project goes through and it starts in not until the fall of 2013 or late summer, early fall of 2013, the actual payments, because we don't start paying on the bond until we actually take the money out, and so we're taking a little bit out at a time to pay off the construction costs, will really not hit to the full value for quite a while. So that timing, you know, may start really working where everybody starts to be getting a little bit more comfort, you know, because we've all been through this. This is so hard this time of this nation's time, this world's time. So I'm hoping that these things, and it seems like these things are starting to come together in just a great time to do this, because you're gonna be getting good prices for construction, good rates, and hopefully by the time the payments are due,
You're right.
we'll all be doing a little bit better here, so. Not a
Wouldn't that be
predictor, but I'm
fabulous?
just saying, so.
Sounds good.
I hope you are a
I'm running
predictor.
for president. If it happens.
The debate last
It
night.
might not be too late. All right, so is there anything else people want to add?
Well, I think at the October 15th community meeting, there's some contradictory information where people are saying, well, the study that was submitted during the statement of interest showed a declining enrollment. And I tried to point out that that wasn't a land use study, that looked
Live
at
births.
birth and death records and Massachusetts trends. And that it doesn't really jive with what the master plan, which did do a land use study, showing the amount of developable land. Now our build out shows, at build out, we're close to 12,000 people will be here. And you can't say, if we stay with current zoning and there are special permits, and so I mean, there could be, if you're gaining 1,000 people every 10-year census, you can't say that enrollments are gonna go down. I mean, so I mean, I think you look at some of these communities like Peabody and Beverly, pretty much built out, and they're having declining enrollments, is because a lot of the children in those areas have, you know, left the net,
Come to Georgetown.
come to Georgetown. Well,
And I always like to look back at,
It's fastest growing
they did the same
community on
studies when we
the North Shore.
built that school originally, and they did the same studies when we remodeled the high school 15 years ago. And you're right, we keep growing, right? I'm sure they didn't redo that high school without doing studies of enrollment.
We're one of the fastest growing communities every census.
We are.
So, I mean, and so, just that, and that's why I wanted to take a serious look at moving 7th grade, because I wasn't convinced that just moving 6th grade, I mean, I think in 10 years, we're gonna look at overcrowd, and hopefully we still have the Pearlie option, you know, to move a grade back. I mean, because we should keep our options open with Pearlie, because we might, in 10, 20 years, looking at.
Well, the advantage is we do have that as an option, should anything ever change, because that will always be an educational building.
And one more point, when we built the apartments, it kind of threw any enrollment predictions, it made it more difficult. Because
Yeah.
with all those apartments, we don't know what kids are moving in what year and what kids are moving out one year. So it's not as steady of it's not as far as houses being built to bring in more kids into our town.
And that wasn't on the build-out analysis, because that land was zoned industrial.
Yeah.
So when they did
Doesn't
the
even
build-out
count it.
analysis, they looked at residential zoning use. And
Exactly.
they don't look at building 200 apartment buildings in an industrial, so I mean.
No, we have very little apartments for rent, and that building, all of it is rented. So it's a whole different, you can't keep track of it, you just
right.
can't keep on top of it.
And you can't predict either.
No,
It made it much more difficult to predict.
Yes, it does.
absolutely.
And we've already made adjustments for those enrollments. I mean, there's only 5 of each grade at Pearlie right now. And then a number of the grades at Pembroke that have had 6 and 7 sections of each grade are now, several of them are 5. So you were looking at about 125 kids was the decline in enrollment, K through 12, over the course of that span in that enrollment study. Which, is basically 1 of each elementary grade.
Yeah.
Which is where we are.
Right.
So the building that's being built deals directly with those enrollment studies. In fact, Eric said many times he's worried about the building becoming too small. If we ended up getting more kindergarteners at Pearlie, or more students for kindergarten or first grade, we don't have a room to expand them. Right? Every single room right now is being used as a classroom. So we don't have room for like a bubble class unless we took the technology lab away or did what we've done in the past.
Yeah.
We still can't get the art and music up out of the basement. So
Right.
any new growth at Pearlie, if we just leave it as it is still going to not have enough room for the current program that we operate there.
And we're still using basement storage as classrooms,
Yeah.
so.
So-
I like to reiterate basement storage as classrooms.
As classrooms, yeah,
Because that's how Georgetown is being run.
yeah.
We have no choice. There's so many non-educational spaces being used for educational purposes.
Right.
That art room is tiny in Pearlie. I mean, I
See,
think that-
back to-
Really, every closet we use for instructional purposes, which is
Little
good.
basement.
Back with that 40B on what you were speaking of, George. At the time that 40B was implemented, the state was giving communities a grant to assist with the cost of their school, and it was cut off. So we didn't take advantage of that because we couldn't. It was gone, and so I think some of us in town had been to the State House and did a lot of griping and laid it out to them. And I think that probably is a good reason that the school building committee has gotten the word that we had about 60 kids coming from there, which we were told maybe 15.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there's a bus and a half now.
Yeah, there's a bus and a half. And we were getting no help at all. And this was like shoved down us, our community, because of the law saying that we have to meet that 10% affordable housing.
Yep.
You know, and that's the issue that,
I think another good issue is, new school in Beverly. My kids play sports, and every place I go, there's a new school. I mean, every place we go, there's a brand new school. We're paying for those schools.
yeah.
Your taxes, all of our taxes are paying for those schools. If the number is right, 300 projects since 2007. I'm hoping that number's right because I put it in the paper. And the fact of the matter is, I mean, that our tax, people are grabbing this money. Isn't it our turn to grab this money?
Yeah.
We're paying for it. We have a need. It's not like we don't have a need.
Yeah.
The alternative to Band-Aid this over the next 10 years while we wait again to do it and put more people's time and effort and tax money being thrown as a Band-Aid. I mean, isn't it time that we get our fair share while we can?
Right.
They're telling us it's our turn. And we're going to say, no, we'll keep paying for every other buddy's new school, but we don't want one ourselves.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know?
And we don't know if the money's going to be there next year.
Absolutely.
Correct.
And I'm not a gambler, so I feel
New governor comes in, new president comes in, God knows
We
what
don't
could happen with
know.
these funds. Absolutely.
Well, what did MSBA put us at a level at? Very needy, or what was the
Urgent.
category?
Especially numerical value.
Was it urgent, or?
Well, I think it's a 1 through 4, and I think you were a 4.
So it tells you what the state thinks
Right.
Right,
of us.
Yeah.
We are really in need of this.
right.
Let's face it, we know that. MSBA came here and told us, not only do we see your need, but we think we're seeing needs you didn't even identify
That should
yet.
be in the presentation.
Absolutely.
That's right.
That's
That's why I brought it
absolutely.
up. We all know this. So.
And I think it's really important that we thank the MSBA. We know that they are not trying to shove something down our throat. They're saying to us, look, we're willing to pay for this. We're giving you half the money. You have a problem and you have no choice. You have to get them fixed. So here's some money. Go fix your roof. Go fix whatever you
Well, towns are
need.
fighting for this money, and we're being told,
There's a
you need it, guys.
Right.
Right.
That's,
That's right. There's a waiting list behind us.
I have somebody right in my community, I'd be happy to take your money and build our new middle school.
That's right.
He's chomping at the bit.
Yep. Anyone else wanna add anything? Yes, we can.
can we now? Do we have?
We can approve the minutes
Four,
and we
six.
can
I thought we
approve
needed
the.
7, so
We
we
have
have
7.
13.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
2, 4, 6.
Oh, I counted wrong. I counted myself twice.
You're twice as good as anyone.
Oh, thanks. I guess we can't approve them then. All right. I think that's it then. Yes. Would you, Jeff,
Oh, I'm sorry.
would you be able to attend tomorrow night with George?
What is the?
It won't be very long.
finance meeting.
What about?
I honestly would, but I'm not here.
And I can't, and Michelle can't.
And it's Dave,
And Dave has not gotten back to me.
I think he'd make the best one.
I honestly
He would-
just flew in, and I gotta fly out tomorrow morning back to
No,
where
I
was,
mean,
so-
Dave.
But I know he
David,
would, but the fact that you were there Saturday will be very helpful. because you have
Do
the
we have a fact
information.
sheet of anything that I?
Yes, I will send
I'll
you.
be getting?
this.
Okay.
What, Ellie, I'm sorry, what's the purpose of going before?
Finance.
Just to
FinCon
get- just to have
asked
them
us-
Well,
vote?
FinCom's gonna vote on Wednesday
They're
whether
gonna
or not.
vote whether or
right.
not they're gonna support the project.
Support the
Right,
project.
and they just want someone there to present some of the things, and
Okay, so put a little cheat sheet in there together for me as to the
Yes.
things that you wanna.
yes, and we asked
Bring up
George
and
and
stuff like
Jeff
that.
if they would please
Mike, we-
represent us, and Mike will be there.
Okay.
Right, I already checked on
I'd
that.
like to know what happened to our representative to the finance board. We shouldn't have to be doing all these meetings
Yeah.
if somebody had been attending.
Well, they, Nazarene did it, offered to do it, because there was absolutely no one else on the board who would do it.
She was told she only had to attend.
That's a good reason.
2 meetings until the submission in August.
Oh my goodness.
I think that's a fair point, because I've
Yes.
heard rumors that they're frustrated that we haven't come to them earlier and included them in the process. But,
Well, John was there.
we haven't had that
But
represented.
they sent the rep here
Yeah.
to be a part, to be that liaison.
And I don't
Open up
know,
our arms.
but, and also we did include them in the tri-board, so I
Okay,
think
so we
they're
just go-
staying on
we
top
go.
of
Yeah,
things.
we go, we
Yeah.
talk,
They
and
feel
if they have
good that-
questions,
Yeah.
yeah,
We haven't-
absolutely, we'll talk to them. I hope there's no hard feelings.
Yeah,
We
no,
don't
I
have
don't
them with
think
them.
so.
That's right, exactly.
We think it's great, so.
Yeah, and Michelle and I have been in touch with Andy,
Yeah.
so,
Good.
Good.
keeping
Yeah,
him
well, hopefully
abreast.
Those rumors and feelings aren't founded, so.
Good.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
no, I
Go right to the
don't think
horse's
that's
mouth
quite
and
the
figure it
case.
out.
You'll be there tomorrow.
And
That's
tomorrow, right, tomorrow I'll give you the fact sheet and you can refer back to that, but both of you have been at all the
Wait, what time
meetings.
does it start though? Because I
I
can't make it
believe-
at 6.
No, yes.
It is at 7.
Well, I think the meeting
Right,
starts at
cannot.
6:30, but I think
Schools
Ian
are
is
on
on at
first.
6:30,
Okay.
right?
Schools on first?
We're on
Yes.
first.
Keep going until I get there.
Well, we also have a school committee, special school committee meeting, so we're gonna try
Well, I'll
to
be
get
able
in
to
and
get there
out.
by 7. So
Okay,
can't get there.
and so George, if they wanna put you on, say no.
Yeah, 7 is what.
That you'll wait for Jeff to get there at 7, and they can just go on with their meeting and come back. Okay? I appreciate you doing that. We need the representation and we need the help.
I was gonna ask Pat on a separate issue, is there anything, after hearing the conversations of what we should be presenting to the town at town meeting, any suggestions, or do you think it pretty much covers it, or?
I think we've talked about the fact that, the positive approach. I mean, this is a phenomenal opportunity. I mean, you just said that there are a number of communities. The waiting list is, we've got 2 or 3 other communities that have been chomping at the bit for that opportunity. They'd love to obviously use your money for their project, and I think you make all the good points. I mean, your construction costs are never gonna be lower, your interest rate's never gonna be lower, competitive spirit out in the marketplace is never gonna be lower. And Terry Kwan, when she was up here walking the middle high school, with regard to the Pembroke and the middle high school, her comment was, especially with regard to the Pembroke, was don't spend good money after bad. I mean, she was very emphatic. And MSBA has been a huge supporter of it because they know you need it. They know the time is right. So I think that there's so many positives here that I think you've covered them pretty much here tonight, and you've been covering them right along. So it's those are really the important issues. Is that it's the old adage. We've all heard the commercial. You pay me now, pay me later. Well, later is going to be 100 cents on a dollar. So. There certainly is the need, and there'll never be a better time.
It's our time.
Yep. All right, so our plan is to perhaps all sit together at the meeting on Monday night. Would everyone be agreeable to that? All right, well,
Y'all do realize that, wait, Monday the 29th, right?
yeah.
That's my birthday. I'm spending my birthday with you guys.
Let's hope it says.
So if the town's listening, give me a good present.
Does my wedding anniversary count?
Did we find out, is it 2/3 majority? Did we find out what the?
Do you know what the vote is?
Almost
Is it
Halloween
2/3,
party.
3/4?
No, I think
It's a bond, it's 2/3.
Oh, it is?
2/3, okay.
At the ballot, it's majority.
At the ballot,
Two-thirds to
right,
get it.
you can win by one. Wow, okay. All right, so Tuesday night, Monday evening, we will be together again. And then,
Will there be handouts, Ellie, on the tables out front?
yes, I think
On
we
the
can put
tables
the
out
fact
front, you
sheet.
can-
I believe we
Fact
can put
sheet.
the fact sheet up there,
Okay.
yes. So we will have copies of that.
And Mike, will there be any kind of financial breakdown sheet available for people?
Just what we had on Saturday.
Because David was talking at one meeting, I mean, we were sitting where George is sitting now, and he was talking about how he saw, he was pointing it out sort of graphically, like how it could be explained, not necessarily in a table, but in a.
You could put it in a slide.
The question is, maybe you wanna ask David, is there something he would recommend? Cause I thought he said, I'm I'm a visual, so I draw the things in a graphic form. So I didn't know if he would be interested, or he was planning to draw something graphic that he thinks would be,
I'll ask him.
Well, I'll see him tomorrow morning.
okay.
Just keep it simple.
Yeah, very
Right.
simple.
Yeah. It's the old KISS theory.
All right, anything else? All right, would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, all in favor? All right. Thank you all very, very much. I appreciate all the work all of you have done for us.
Oh, right, because it
That
doesn't.
was not a meeting.
I can give you a couple of things.
Well, can you just,